Morena, everybody. Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai. Nice to see you all in the house today. Wonderful actually to see you, Roger, in person rather than on a screen. It's great news in your family, obviously. And Mike Pettit, nice to see you online with your stripy curtains. Oh, and our outrageously summery looking shirt. Getting in the summer vibe, eh? Excellent. Great stuff. Well, Morena and Damarie, can I ask you to open us this morning? Thank you.
Tēnā tātou e te whare. Ai, he karakia I koha mai I a hinerangi no te rau ki. Tūtawa mai I runga, tūtawa mai I raro, tūtawa mai I roto, tūtawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, kia koutou katoa, haumie, hui e, tai ki. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, thank you, Damarie. Yeah, look, it's neat to have everybody here this morning. Obviously, we're all aware this is our last council meeting for 2024. We made it all upright and alive. It's all positive, it's all good stuff. So look, welcome to members of the community who are watching online and in the room here with us. Obviously acknowledge Joe Davies, colleagues. It's here again, wonderful to see you. Staff and elected members, yeah, full house. Lovely to see everybody's smiley, happy faces. Before I just whip through a couple of what my week's been like, I just want to express huge gratitude to the people that sit around this table and to the people who are also in the building who come in every day and take some pretty full-on workloads and turn it into some of the things that we have to deal with today. Look, it's been a challenging year. There's no surprise in that, but I just want to acknowledge all the really hard work that staff have undertaken this year for the betterment of our communities and the commitment elected members have shown too in that space. But look, this month has probably been somewhat punctuated, if you like, by Christmas parades and prize givings and obviously celebrate Waipa. We had our probably had a child to go through that. I had the great pleasure of opening and doing a warm up with some athletes for that the other day. Pretty cool. It was hosted at St Peter's actually for a change. So it was quite a well supported and lots of event and lots of excitement across the field. Obviously dance concerts. What else? Lots of waters discussions, LTP grind, the whole thing. So she's been a pretty full on month for us all. So look, without any further ado, I think we should crack into our agenda, which has some pretty momentous items to address. So looking to our agenda, apologies, there are none. We have a full house, obviously noting that Councillor Pettit is attending online. Disclosures of members' interest. I'm not aware of any, but if anybody has found that they are conflicted in some way, shape or form, no, excellent. Late items, again, not aware of there being any. Nope, brilliant. Moving on then. Confirmation of the order of meeting. I'm comfortable moving that order from the chair. Happy with the way it is. And Lou, you're seconding that one for me. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. So moving on then to the confirmation of the minutes. There is a small change in terms of the recommendation, courtesy of Councillor St Eyre. And I shall read that. I believe that's the plan, isn't it? It's to say that the open minutes of the Waipa District Council meeting held on the 26th of November 2024, having been circulated, been taken as read and confirmed as the true and correct record of that meeting, subject to the correction of a minor typographical error. So there is a small change to be made there, which has been picked up by Claire. So on that basis, I'm again happy to move that from the chair according to the amended recommendation, and Andrew, Councillor Brown will second that. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Good stuff. Next item appearing tab 7 of our agenda is documents signed under council seal. I shall hand this one over to
Happy to move.
Jeff. Yeah, they're usually very pedestrian. Yep. You're comfortable with moving that one for us, Marcus, a one-page wonder there?
Awesome.
And Bruce, you will second that for us. I will put the motion then as it appears on page 20 of our agenda. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Great stuff. Right, on to the beast, the long-term plan, appearing at page 8 of our agenda. We have the team appearing, ably headed there by Melissa. The floor is yours, Melissa. Nice to see you. Good morning. And Yolanda.
Good morning, Council. Big day today. So the purpose of this report is to recommend that Council approved the draft high-level parameters for the long-term plan for 2025-34. This also includes the draft financial strategy, draft financial policies, which, to be more specific around that, include the revenue and financing policy, the remissions and postponement of rates and water charges policy, treasury management policy, the fees and charges. Approval of the significant forecasting assumptions is also being sought today, and the recommendation also notes the removal of the project funding for the sports field lease model. Following the approval of these draft documents, this will enable staff to be able to develop further detailed financial statements, which will be presented to you at the council meeting on the 29th of January. And this is in preparation for auditing early in February. Following this, we'll be consulting with the community on the draft plan in March next year. But I guess before we go into the formalities, I would just like to hand over to Yolanda to provide an update on the indicator properties.
Good morning. I just wanted to highlight to the council members that if you look at the indicator properties and you compare it to the indicator properties that we had disclosed on the 3rd of December, you would notice slight differences. The profiles look similar to what you have seen on the 3rd of December. We have, as part of the ongoing refinement and populating the financial statements and the FIS statements as part of the information that you'll see on the other side of Christmas, there has been some small tweaks within the indicator, within the rates lines. So as I said, it's small changes and the profiles are similar. Just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you for that slight clarification there, Yolanda. Like any discussion, obviously this has been a huge body of work that we've all been churning our way through for some time now, but I shall open the floor for questions. Claire.
Yes, thanks. Congratulations on getting us to this point, and it looks pretty good given that it reflects the workshops that we've done. So are we sort of finalising these documents so that this is our last chance of having any changes put in or any additional wording and stuff like that? Like, is this the final form or will there still be further?
This is the final high-level budget parameters. So I guess to look specifically at that table that is included in the recommendation. And obviously all the attachments, and this does inform the detailed financials that will be worked through in January and then presented to you at the end of January. So it's really just to make sure we've got confirmation that everything is, you're comfortable with where we're sitting, and then we can go through and do further detailed works.
Yeah, because there's some additional wording I think I'd prefer to have in there in certain places. Yeah, so for instance, that table that's right at the beginning of our item that's on page 24 of our agenda. So it's got all of council, you know, the graphs and all that. The middle graph on the left-hand side is the quantified limit on rates income. And it's not obvious what the changes have been. I mean, what it is that we have altered our limit on rates income to be 75% in years 1 to 3. And then 65% in previous years, and the 65% was the one we used to operate on. So there's no mention of that in the preamble or the page before, and I think that it should be highlighted, that's all, because it's an important change. Yeah. And, 'cause, 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 '
Claire, can I just interrupt here? I think Ken has
Yeah.
something that
Sorry,
might assist you with that.
Yeah.
So look, I guess the difficulty, councillor, is that this is just one part of the package that is being shaped up. So in regard to the graph you've just referred to and the three bars at 75% and then returning to the 65%, which has been the norm, there is obviously discussion on that in the financial strategy. So that when all of these component parts go into the draft LTP, there is certainly commentary as to why those first 3 years are at 75%. It's just what we're looking to do here, as Melissa has set out, is to confirm the really high level detail, but it is going into a fuller package.
Yes, Ken, they are in that sort of more detailed document later in the package, but I feel it should be signalled in this, in a way, this is kind of like an executive summary. And I think it's unfair on people that are trying to understand what we're proposing in such a complex and multi-documented package that you're going to leave that kind of, like those are sort of things you should have up front, I guess. So that's the kind of thing I think should be in this introduction part. Yeah. I would not be happy not saying that, because in a way, this is a policy change that we've made. And the only way you'll know is if you dig down right into, page 273 or something. Yeah. And so that's why I'm raising it now. I think it should be in this introductory part.
Yeah, so look, I'm just I guess I'm just concerned about that, because actually while there's like page 24, the particular page you're referring to, so while it is in here to illustrate I guess the outcome of of the parameters that you're setting today, I mean this page is not going to appear anywhere in the final documents. Like each of these graphs will be sitting in the financial strategy with the relevant commentary. So so I'm just not sure. I mean, we could. We absolutely could put an explanation at the bottom of that graph, and in fact, actually, the other graph is probably the one just to its right, the limit on rates increase, where where obviously the limit is very much higher than normal in those first 3 years as well. I mean, we could put an explanatory commentary at the bottom of both those graphs, like we have actually for the balanced budget graph. We could certainly do that, but actually this might be the last time, in this report today, this might be the last time you actually sort of see that page, shaped up like this. It is moving from here into an LTP document, and we will ensure that the relevant explanations are put in the LTP document. In fact, they are already in there.
Okay, thanks. I assumed that there'd be sort of, I suppose, to avoid duplication, what's in our introductory statement there was probably going to go into the consultation document as an executive summary, but that's okay. It's a similar thing on page 45 of our agenda, which actually has all of those financial performance graphs, and none of them have a definition on them, okay? So we do have on page 44, the graph which quantified rates limit, but there's no definition of it, okay? And over the next page, the balanced budget, all those. So I appreciate that there is an explanation within the financial strategy, but I feel it's important to also have, wherever you have these graphs, to have what is the definition of how it's calculated.
Yeah. Oh, look, absolutely, councillor. I do absolutely agree with you on that. Particularly, pages 44 and the next two pages where we actually do show all of those financial prudence graphs. And yes, you are quite right. The explanations are not there. I believe they should be, and we can certainly pick that up and put them in for the final. Yeah. Good observation. Thank you.
You comfortable with that, Claire?
Yeah, I've got some other suggested additions as well. This now's the right time. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So on page just that, sorry, page 34. So this is the financial strategy, and the third paragraph, oh, sorry, no, sorry, not the third paragraph, the third to last paragraph. Okay, it talks about the challenges we have with policy and legislative requirements. Okay, I'd like to have added in there wording that the NZTA funding cuts to roading subsidies may compromise our ability to complete the same level of renewals and upgrades we've been able to do historically, because that has not been captured anywhere. And then on page 35, it talks about being financially prudent and the debt in bold. And there's two benchmarks relating to debt. One which measures the percentage of net interest costs against total revenue. As far as I know, we haven't had a graph showing that where we are with that. And I think it'd be really good to have a graph in there just to show how we're tracking. Yeah. And I suppose compared to previous years, or I suppose how if it's going to be forecast across the 9 years of the LTD. It's not one that we've actually spent any time on because I think we're pretty much compliant. But when I read this, I thought, oh, I should be able to see it at a glance. That's all. Yeah. Is there a reason why it hasn't been included?
Councillor St. Pierre, it is part of the prudential limits at the bottom. So the majority of the description or comments in the strategy relates to the debt limit, but the debt servicing is within the financial strategy under those graphs that you just said we need a definition in. So it is definitely in the financial strategy. It's just in terms of where do we put it to not duplicate.
Yeah, and so when you're reading through this, not being familiar with all of the parts of it, at that point, I didn't even know there was a section that's going to list all of them. And yeah, so, you know, like maybe that could be signalled or something.
Yeah. So look, I think that one is very easily fixed. I wouldn't recommend putting the graph, you know, in the commentary, but we could certainly make a reference to those, to all of the, you know, to it being in the graphs at the end of the strategy. Yeah, we can easily tidy that up.
Okay, and then on page 36, the second to last paragraph, it talks about, I suppose, the last sentence, our debt management approach will ensure rigorous checks and balances are in place across all investment decisions. So I thought that would be a good place to say that that LTP or annual plan process, so that any accelerated debt repayments are moderated against an affordability lens. So that's my understanding of it, that we are paying down debt faster than what a normal cycle would be, but we're not going to do that blindly. Yeah. And then on page 37, it's about a balanced budget. And the second paragraph talks about the different approach we're taking now. And so this is a suggestion I want to make, and I accept that not everyone will be happy with it. So I'm just putting it out there. This is what I would like to see, but there might be some discussion on it. Okay, so I'd like some wording in that paragraph.
Sorry, Claire, can I interrupt there? What page are you on? Just so we can carry with you. Page 37?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is about our everyday costs are paid for from everyday income, all right? And so I'd love to see here that we would state that growth debt on our books would normally be paid for by developers, but this now needs to have a section that's serviced by ratepayers at the minimum level required to comply with covenants and benchmarks. And our approach to navigate these requirements in an equitable way has been, one, higher repayments relate to general debt, not growth debt. I presume that. And 2, lobbying central government and the LGFA to broaden our covenants to other internationally recognised ones, such as debt to assets, which is something that's come through the local Waters Done Well discussions.
So what we're going to need to do, Claire, is just from a process perspective, if I may, Susan, is the team is recording these resolutions as we go along. We're going to put them on the screen because they'll need to be adopted. I'm looking at Ken, and if we can split your proposal into 2 parts. One is the how we're managing growth debt and what that looks like, I think is actually really important to explain.
Yeah.
I think the points you're making today, Claire, are fantastic because we are all in this all the time. And if you think of it, pick it up for our community members who need to be able to pick it up and understand it and not have to search through various parts of the document to understand it, are really helpful. So thank you. I know that the last part of your suggestion is something that you are very keen on exploring, and I know you've talked with our advisors about it. My concern today, and I'm looking at our team, is I think we can still pursue those options outside of the formal LTP document, but those are measures and mechanisms that are being proposed by central government through the LGFA at the moment. And it's a policy decision in effect by the LGFA to use those mechanisms. We can advocate for and encourage a new CCO to consider it, but I don't know if it's going to pass the audit test in our LTP document because it's a conversation about the mechanisms we're going to use. And so I acknowledge and applaud you for the research and work you do to think about these things, because without you, your contribution's hugely valuable, Claire. I'm just not sure that in this document, that's the right place to put it at this point in time. Is that fair?
Yeah, and so that's why I sort of, open this with saying, you guys might not be on board with it. So I wasn't thinking in terms of a change in policy that we've achieved or anything like that. I was thinking more of our community, where we're painting a picture, where we're trying to meet these, I suppose, prudential limits and sort of policy settings, which aren't, well, what I say aren't quite fit for purpose, really, or they certainly don't match our needs as a growth council. And I would be thinking, as a person that was reading it, well, why aren't they doing anything about that?
Okay.
So I wanted to signal that we're trying to, try and get fit for purpose.
So would you be happy with a statement? And I'm looking at the team because they'll know better than I whether it's acceptable to make a statement that's to the effect of we'll continue to pursue other policy options that meet the needs of us as a growth council. Something like that. Okay. So I'm looking at the people in the room to capture something like that and ensure that you're right, that on behalf of our community, we're going to pursue other optional mechanisms.
So I see just to have that message into the community, because we understand from them that being seen to be, good financial managers, is a really top priority for them. And I just see that as sort of a natural consequence. These are kind of the conversations we need to be initiating.
And I also think that it provides a written record of the fact that that is something of interest to us. So when we do pursue it in the future, there is a track record of us as we as council
absolutely
interested in that. So thank you.
Yeah, and then just sort of building on that point, on page 39, under point 4, considering alternative funding and financing options, I was happy to see that there, but could we also include that we considered new revenue streams and are participating in sector-wide discussions on potential options, but nothing has come to fruition at this point in time? Yeah, so I think that's also important. Yeah, okay, cool. I better leave it there, hadn't I? Yeah. Cool.
No, awesome, Claire. Great stuff. I've got Roger and Philip, but Philip, did yours directly relate to something? Roger, are you happy with Philip just jumping in there on this point? Excellent. Away you go, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Just sort of off the cuff from what Susan's Claire was saying, with the government recently just saying in the last hour or so how they're going to scrutinise councils and debt level and things like that. And then Christopher Luxton, I see a statement today, said pipelines before cycleways. So, we're looking closely at our debt. how much is government going to start, checking all our books and everything like that on these documents and things like that?
So I'll answer
how
that.
much scrutiny are they going to?
Philip, that through Audit New Zealand.
It's just something completely different.
That's right. So our LTP, the very process that we're going through here, and today we are agreeing these documents so that the team might prepare them for audit late January, early February. That process of audit through Audit New Zealand, it then is scrutinised through the Office of the Auditor General, is the very transparent and robust process that all councils across New Zealand go through. And of course, the government has access to all of that scrutiny and the result of that for each council across New Zealand. So I think I would go so far as to say that it's a very high benchmark that local government meets. And in fact, central government hasn't done asset management planning to the degree that we have for many years. So I think we're in good stead, Philip, and you can be assured, as our constituents can be, that this process is highly rigorous. In fact, I think through future local government reform and the desire to achieve productivity gains, there's actually a move afoot to say, how could we adjust the long-term plan process so that it requires less resource actually of local government on an ongoing basis?
It's quite pleasing to see what's coming out of central government currently. And, we had that last week with our traffic, with potholes and all that sort of stuff too, making sure that we're keeping on top of things, collectively throughout the whole country. So there's a lot of good things coming out of there, I think, anyway, personally. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Philip. Are you going to jump straight in on Monty?
It was directly to a question
Okay,
from Claire.
are you okay with that,
I've checked
Roger?
with Roger, and Roger has graciously granted me.
Perfect,
So
excellent.
just,
Where you going,
Claire,
Monty?
just one of the things you said about the growth debt.
Yeah,
I just wanted to have real clarity on this.
yeah,
So, you broke that growth debt up into two parts.
yeah,
The first part, which we didn't discuss,
yeah.
I might have misheard you, but I thought you might have been implying that that we were not applying our growth pays for growth as far as is possible under the provisions of the Local Government Act. Is that what you were implying?
Actually, I don't know. So I've never actually had a definitive answer from staff on it. So I would have liked one. I don't know. I've assumed after so many months of trying to get to the bottom of it, where we are accelerating our debt payments and trying to comply with that debt to revenue metric, that we are taking our general debt and repaying that faster, and that the growth debt is still entirely serviced by development contributions. But I don't know. I'd like to know, because I suspect that it's not, but I've assumed that that would be the only way that we would be complying with that policy. Yeah. Don't know.
Ken has a clarification to make in there.
Yes, look, sorry, I wasn't aware there were still questions outstanding in that regard. So yeah, look, growth is still paying for growth. So any interest on growth related debt is ring fenced, and it is met out of DCs. So growth is paying for growth over time is what we are saying. Yeah.
And so I suppose the contra to that is that those increased debt repayments that we are making is the general debt, or debt that is attributable to the general ratepayer and users of the services. Yeah.
Yes. Well, there are some multiple things going on there, I mean, essentially, and we've talked at length, and the financial strategy talks at length about fixing the balance sheet. So there is an element of fixing the balance sheet in terms of bringing those debt levels down. But absolutely, the growth pays for growth thing is still happening. Development contributions are paying the interest on that growth related debt. Yeah. So in those figures that you saw from Tony in the last week or two, and in fact you saw increases coming through to DC, the DC level DC rates. A big component of that was recovery of that interest expense from the DCs.
Claire, you're smiling. Are you comfortable? And Monty, have you got the answers you need?
Look, I'm comfortable, and it's a question of the organisation's external debt versus its DC debt, which is an internal loan book thing. But yeah, I'm comfortable. Okay, it's been adequately proven to me.
Okay, so Monty's comfortable. What about you, Claire?
I'm comfortable at this stage with Kim's explanation. Yeah.
What great stuff. Awesome. Now we will go to the very patient Roger. Roger, is your microphone on? Sorry.
Sorry, yes. So I was challenged, but I have attended all of the workshops and I've had the opportunity to submit a considerable number of questions that I'd like to say at this stage, some of those are still unanswered. Because there was a comment to say that they were going to restrict my communication in regard to the questions that I had on the rates and the LTP. Given that, there was a question of 4.8 million that I kept raising and I didn't get an answer that satisfied me. But thanks, Yolanda, source and application of funds, which is a standard financial report, enabled me to fully understand that. And I do not know why that could not have been provided at an earlier stage. That certainly made a difference to my understanding. Some of the questions that I asked were to do with line by line questions in terms of the budgets. And I believe that there are some that are still unanswered, like, for instance, the one that referred to the 21 newly established positions within this organisation over the previous 12 to 18 months. I cannot accept a 15.5% rise in rates. And I'll be voting against this because I don't think that we have done sufficient to justify that. There are still nice to haves that are included in the budget, even if they're smaller amounts, but they're still included in the budget. Somebody else's microphone's on, I think. So in terms of our community, our ratepayers, you know, we've got to remember that there's a huge number of ratepayers out there that are no longer on fixed incomes, they're on reducing incomes. Because what used to be a fixed income ain't buying what it used to buy. And I don't think that we're respecting the position that those ratepayers find themselves in. So I've had my opportunity during the 3 months to ask questions. I still say that some of them haven't been answered, and I know I'm in the minority. I wish I was in the majority, but I'm in the minority, and I will be voting against this because I don't think sufficient has been done to reduce it. So I've had my say. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Sorry about that feedback. We're not quite sure what's going on there because you did seem to. Okay, we're swapping microphones. See if that
Testing
changes.
1, 2, 3.
No feedback there. Look, thank you for your honesty and clarifying your position, Roger. Don't know if it's anybody wish to respond. I was able to provide you around those, and I'm pleased you have some resolution in respect of those questions. Monty.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I am going to respond to that because to me, this has been this whole process and trying to put together this LTP budget. It's been quite a difficult budget to put together. To me, this is kind of quite a complex business problem you're looking at. There's all these competing interests and competing constraints, and you know we've been navigating our way through this. And I somewhat wish, Roger, that you had expressed this at our last workshop, because at our last workshop, I came away going, okay, your words were something like, I'm not happy with 16%, but I can see I'm not going to get any better, or something like that. And I thought, yeah, okay. Knowing that you were sort of on that side of the debate, it actually gave me a bit of comfort, because I was like, okay, we've worked this problem together, and we've come to a solution that that even you were agreeing with, and that for me was quite nice. So I would have rather you had said at the last workshop, no, I'm still not happy, because then we would have had a little bit more time to potentially continue to try and troubleshoot this problem. And the competing interests around the table, the competing views around the table are part of the solution and part of the ability to troubleshoot a problem like this, because you're never going to get everything you want because of the competing constraints. That little graph we're all looking at with you know, the pink and the orange and the blue, it perfectly demonstrates the trouble we've got. You know, it's showing these high rates rises that none of us are comfortable with. No one's comfortable with 15.5% rates in, you know, year one, 10% in year two. None of us want that. But then as you look across, you begin to see what's the balance sheet pressure that we're under as well. And then the affordability pressure and all these constraints. We're trying to navigate this way through it. And there's no simple answer. That's why it's quite a wicked business problem. So my point one, it would have been nice to know that. Point two, I hear you, but I disagree. I think the solution we've come to is pretty reasonable. If this were my own business, that's what I'd be doing, which is kind of the test that I apply. And for me, it's a balance between the rates we're imposing, the affordability to our ratepayers over the whole 10-year, plus the care and attention and that we're providing to the asset base. Yep. Because these are community-owned assets. I keep saying this, there's $2.5 billion of community-based assets that all of us use. All of our lives are tied to them. Our property values are underpinned by them. And so moves to in the short term, save yourself money, often come back to bite you. Because if your infrastructure goes into a death spiral, it's in no one's long-term interest. So back to my central point, if I was the only person in charge, this is what I'd be doing. So I'm happy. Yeah. That's me. Thank you. I think I might be.
I don't want this to become
Thanks,
an
Monty.
argument
Yeah.
between me
Roger.
and Monty, but I do want to respond that I think I've been pretty consistent in my view against the 15.5% rates increase through all of the whips. And, you know, when you are in office and you're debating things around the table, even though I might be on Zoom, at some point in time, the frustration of the fight gets too much. And you've got to say, I acknowledge that that's what's going to happen. It doesn't mean to say that I ever said that I agreed totally with it. But there was a frustration of kind of heading against the wind all the time. I think there are things that we could have, I still maintain there are things we could have done and answers that we never got.
Can I just finally lighten the
Monty,
mood?
go for it.
Roger, you were consistently against 16%. We've given you 15.5. What are you complaining about?
Thanks, Roger and Monty. There are no gloves out, so that's good. No, thank you for stating both of your positions. Is there somebody's phone going? Oh, no, sorry. Claire.
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to you as well, Roger, and I respect your statements, I guess, and I do think that you have been pretty consistent that you felt that those rates rise around 15 and 16%, yeah, you weren't comfortable with. Like, from my point of view, I'm also not comfortable with it, but I'm not voting against it. Sort of for the same reasons, I guess, that Monty said that, you know, it's a group decision and it's kind of like we're looking at what is I suppose, the most pragmatic approach at this point in time, even though we're not comfortable with it. I mean, I was pretty strident early on in this process that it was really important for me that we did have fit for purpose metrics around the way that we manage our balance sheet or our growth, so that was one of the reasons why I did ask for some wording that we are seeking, or we're part of a conversation to change policy settings that don't tie our debt ceiling to revenue, but rather look at an asset to debt ratio, which is used internationally by water entities and things like that. That's just one example. The second thing that I was really keen on was getting some kind of new revenue stream going, and I haven't achieved that either. There's been a conversation. Ken's been pretty good at reporting back that there's sector work done, but even so, I'm pretty disappointed that another LTP and we haven't increased our revenue options. And in fact, what we're doing is we're increasing the proportion of the way we fund our business from rates. Yeah, so I'm disappointed about that too. And the third thing I wanted to achieve was some way of moving some of our debt off our books. So that would actually alleviate that debt to revenue metric. And again, that's been pretty disappointing as well. We did look into IFF, which didn't suit our needs. In fact, it was going to be more expensive. But there are other ways of moving debt off our books, which I don't know if we had the chance to explore, which, yeah, and I guess looking at this as, I know it's a 9-year plan, but I also see that there's a chance after we've signed and sealed this to work on the next one, and these are conversations that aren't going to go away. And I think that, yeah, we've got to keep exploring all options so that we can make sure that the rates burden that we have on our community, yeah, is at a reasonable level, and certainly not going to be going in those step ups, yeah, of 10 and 15% every year, which is what I'd like. I totally agree about I suppose everyone agreed that we've got to look after our assets, our infrastructure. Yeah, that it would be the wrong thing. Yeah, yeah. And so, so while I don't, I'm not particularly happy, but I don't feel I need to vote against it. And I'm hoping that we'll have future opportunities to work on these other things that might actually change our business model to something that's going to be more sustainable. Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks for your sharing your views with us. Lou?
Listen to this conversation with a lot of interest, and I have a lot of sympathy with Councillor Gordon and also with Councillor Montgomery. I can understand both positions quite readily. I come from an era a little bit different to most of you. I'm a little bit older. So I do actually work in an area where I do know that most people that are retired or actually on fixed incomes are definitely, as Roger Gordon said, not fixed anymore. We're declining quite dramatically with interest rates going down, etc. So that is a problem. They represent a third of our population in this area. So that's a very other important thing. When we talked of getting rid of debt, we have got to consider the fact that we're looking at something called a CCO, or having the waters taken out and put away. I would ask, that's going to make a huge effect at some stage. It's legislated, whether we like it or not. So we're going to have to do something. The fact that we have to, at this moment, consider keeping it with ourselves and operating, but I think we'll be forced by the momentum of the councils around us to actually participate and actually go with that. So that's going to take away a proportion of our debt, and quite some proportion. It'll be removed from our balance sheet as a council. So that is something that I think has to be considered in the medium term. Not immediately, because we can't, it's not happening now, but it will happen. And I see that we had a significant problem from year 5 onwards in our debt prediction, that we were going to have a deficit at that time for the waters, for the actually gapping the 2% and staying within that 2% for the 3 waters. So I think that will happen if, legislatively, I think we'll be out of that. The other thing I wanted to make a point was that we do need to be aware that this is a document that we're going to review in 2 years' time. All right. It is a document, and we're in a changing environment. Have a look at the world at the moment. And the whole world, this is not our New Zealand recession. This is an economic recession all over the world. And we have to be in a situation where we make enough facility, or as I say, having enough contingency to be able to survive in a very, very difficult environment. And although I disagree with the 15.5%, I can see the logic of that to allow us to have that leeway of debt to headroom that we need, that little bit of contingency. So as I say, I'm not going to add too much more. Thank you very much. And I think in this case, unfortunately, I would support reluctantly where we're going.
Cheers, Lou. Anybody else? Oh, Liz?
I think, like many of us, I'm sitting in between Roger and Monty right now, and I think that's a pretty uncomfortable place for me, actually. So there's a lot of us who've been sitting around this table a long time, and this is probably the least proud I've been of a long-term plan, okay? Because of all the reasons that we've been workshopped, there's all lots of reasons why we're sitting in this space today. But trust and confidence, we need to ensure that we instill that in our community, and our consultation document and the consultation that we have with our communities in the new year we've got to be at the top of our game this time. Because that trust and confidence over the past year, we've lost a lot of that for lots of reasons. We haven't actually instilled a lot of that through our community. The third bridge, for example, Cambridge is still reeling from that. So what this long-term plan needs to do is it needs to be equitable, it needs to be flexible, and it needs to be really transparent. So I'm really confident at the moment, the equitable part of this, that making sure that the costs are shared fairly amongst all our residents, those are on high incomes, those are on fixed incomes or declining incomes, that we need to be, I feel like we've landed in a reasonable place with that. The DCs are a really good example, I think, around how we're trying to be as equitable as we possibly can. The flexibility part of it, we've got the annual plan process, which Lou was just alluding to. So we always have that ability to come back every year and make tweaks depending on the environment and where we're at. So that's really, really important, that we just continue to let our community know that we can always come back annually and fix things or change things as required. The transparency, ensuring that our ratepayers understand where their money is going. This is exactly what Claire was trying to say at the beginning. This needs to be readable. We need our ratepayers to understand why we're in this situation. The messaging that Susan has already spread out there around interest rates and all that kind of thing, that's been brilliant. But this document that goes out next year, there's a lot of complexity to our workings, and we need to somehow bring that to a level where our average ratepayer can understand it so that they will have trust and confidence in the next 9 years. I'm a little bit worried about our operating levels of service. That was one thing I said right from the start, that's not negotiable, okay? And now that we have acknowledgement from Waka Kotahi that the percentage is not going, the percentage of money that they'll be funding us with is less. We need to be absolutely on our game here, because if we are going to reduce our levels of service, then I think when we're in the next few months, we need to look at where that where those budgets in particular are, and increase them if we need to. So I'm imploring, I guess, Dawn and Brian at this point, we don't want to see weeds on our footpaths. We want our gardens to look good. That is one thing that I know our communities really take pride in. So I just want to make sure that we're not around this table in 18 months' time saying, oh, hang on, why are the bridges not cleaned? Those operating levels of service is what our communities need to feel pride in their district. So there's just some non-negotiables for me. So I just need to make sure that those things are still going to happen.
It's like the government's going to be keeping a close eye on us all on that.
I'm sure.
Potholes.
So look, our communities are already feeling the strain of the rising costs, but what we need to do now is just make sure that we look after our long-term investment in our infrastructure and services, and deliver a plan, that's going to hopefully inspire confidence as, you know, as elected members, not fear or frustration. So that's where our consultation document really needs to be, you know, like I say, top of the game this time. And I need our ratepayers to know that we've got their backs, okay? And no one likes the 15%. It may not be 15%, everybody, because our ratepayers may come out and say, that's not good enough. So we've got that whole process to run through yet. So we need to let that happen, hear from our communities, and then there'll come a time after the LTP submissions and things that we will make our final decision. So nothing's off the table just yet. So I just want to make that, you know, clear. I've got big long lists of things here, but I'll leave it at that. But I kind of feel that I'm not going to vote against this. I think there's still a long way to go. Let's just try and inspire that confidence in our communities that they expect from us.
Thanks, Liz. Oh, I've got frogs in my throat. Thank you for that. Dale-Marie.
Tēnā tātou. Yeah, I'm going to go with the echoing of the majority here. But I'm going to just declare this for those of my community that I represent and have only had one term of representation for our communities. As I've said before, of course, the ratepayers that I represent won't be happy with the rates rise, as they aren't happy with how their representation may be taken away next year if we don't look after them in the referendum as well. And I will have to remind everybody that, you know, these rates are on land that was taken from us. So we're still in recovery from stolen land, and we're having to pay rates on top of that stolen land. So I know that up until now, until the Māori Ward has represented those communities at this table, we haven't been part of what has been decision making up until now. So as the person that sits here and represents those voices, no, I'm not happy with rates rises either. But what I'm not happy with will be a district that will be behind when it is a high growth district, and we will have to respond to the problems that we have in our district. I am confident with my peers around the table that we have absolutely ka pahu mātou. We have, I want to say confidently, we have had a go at this. And as someone who is new to this and hasn't been sitting around this table very long, having to digest the amount of information that's come at us. And I disagree with you, Philip, sorry. I don't agree with nothing that has come out of the government. This coalition has been positive. And I think they have actually been a hindrance to us being able to progress stuff more, because they've held us in limbo lots of times, and they've changed things up along positive avenues that the country has wanted us to take. So I do disagree with you, my friend, on that point. What I will say is I will be voting with my peers to support this, because we need to go forward as a high growth area. So tēnā tātou.
Thanks, Dale-Marie. Certainly lots of information, right? Absolutely. Andrew.
Yeah, so I think I better make my position clear as well. I pretty much agree totally with what Monty has said. And I'd just like to remind everyone that we're not going to reduce levels of service, that we are going to look after our infrastructure assets. And actually, our renewals capex is going to be below what it should be for the next 4 years. And we're going to catch up later. If we reduce the rates increase more, that situation is only going to be worse. In my mind, am I happy that we have to go out with a 15.5% rate rise? No, but the alternative would be worse. To see our assets deteriorate would be very poor decision making on our behalf here. So I'm definitely voting for this.
Cheers, Andrew. Anybody else wish to share their thinking who haven't spoken on the proposals before us? Philip? Oh, sorry, Mike, online, sorry. Your hands are obscured a little bit by the record button.
No,
Floor's yours.
sorry. Yeah, kia ora koutou. A few little things just to mention. The rates, the 15.5%, I always just look at it as a newspaper headline. It really affects some people and not all. It's a really blunt tool for people to look at it and go 15.5%. When the people of Cambridge, the people of Te Awamutu, they're going to be in and around that headline. If you're a commercial industrial, chances are you could be well above that if you're in TA in Cambridge. And all the rest of the district, you're actually going to be reasonably substantially below it. Parongia, Ohopo, Nanapuri, the rural residentials, Parongias, Kakapuku, Mangatotili, they're all actually far below that headline average. So it really just is, I sort of implore residents to go into those calculators and have a look at what it means for you as a resident, as a ratepayer. The other thing, I guess, with an LTP is we have a lot of people come in, and in the past we have had money to add into the LTP. We've sort of found it, but look, people, there is no money. There is no money. I mean, anything extra now is going above and beyond that average headline of 15.5%. So it's just a time to sort of tie home and just accept that a lot of the things we've offered in the past, I'm not saying don't come in, but don't expect a result. And that's that's not a council view, that's a Mike Pettit view, because I think 15.5% as a headline average is enough for me. The other thing I've got here is people don't shift to Waipa for it to go backwards, and nor do people shift to Waipa really for it to stay stationary. And we get some feedback from some of our smaller villages and areas that they do feel like we'll stay stationary. But I think the likes of Cambridge and Te Awamutu, we haven't stayed stationary, we have invested. So, I do feel for those smaller places that are still paying the rates and don't feel that maybe we have quite delivered for them. And I think moving forward, that is a focus that we need to look at. And how do I finish this? Because I like finish with a hamburger. See, start nice, say what you really mean to say, and then finish nice. So, but my next one is really this revenue stream thing, and I feel, Claire and I are probably on the same boat here, that it's almost disappointing now there's no money or no headroom to actually create money. Those with money create money, and unfortunately we've got no damn money, and it's really frustrating sitting around this table knowing that we should be looking for opportunities and investments. I've talked about solar and that sort of thing, but to generate income to reduce our rates. So that is something, over the next, not this time here, but we're doing this LTP in a couple of years, and it's something I really like us to implore to actually look at and do the groundwork now, not wait for 2 more years of how can we generate income for the ratepayers of Waipa. The other thing is, look, I'm not, and this is the last thing, is I'm not deterred by we've had to put projects off, put them on the back burner, and maybe they'll be cancelled, I don't know. But every big new shiny thing we build creates or attracts depreciation. And that depreciation has to be paid for by ratepayers. The government's not going to come to our rescue over that. So by just tie-hoing on some of the stuff too, it could be worse than 15.5%, or the rates in the future could be worse if we just keep building and building these big new shiny things if we actually haven't got the ratepayer base to fund it. So it is a good time just to tie-ho, take stock, and we'll get back on the horse with some of those aspirational projects in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamburger. Yeah, no, well put. Any other, thank you for sharing your thinking. Mike, any other input around the table from people who haven't spoken? I'm going to look at the people that haven't spoken. Marcus, did you want to? Yeah.
Yeah. Rocking out, guys.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. Bruce?
I'm most around Monty's thing that I treat like all these decisions that we made in the past as a business. We've got to do some hard calls in the 80s. We made some tough calls. Business to even survive in the 80s, especially from a farming perspective, was massive. So you make hard calls. You work hard, you tighten everything up. There's a few things, no different to council business. You've got to keep your infrastructure running. I was always told by my father, never stop fertiliser because grass makes the grass grow. So we did that, but we cut everything else. My wife went back to work, and now I sort of relate it to what's happening now. We've got to balance our books. We're sensible, and I've got no problem going to any of my ratepayers, although none of them ask, thank goodness, touch wood at the moment, with 15%. I know it'll come right, so I'm pretty optimistic that we'll get through this, and we're a good place. So, touch wood.
Thanks, Bruce. Philip?
Oh, not really, but just from what Liz was saying, working in with our community, getting them right in behind our community and supporting them and communicating with them and helping them try and understand what we're having to go through the next couple of years too. So our community is getting our confidence back in them, with confidence for them. So yeah, working with them, communicating, really important.
Cheers, Philip. Okay, hey, look, what I'm hearing around the table is a general support and realisation that this has been an incredibly well worked and thorough journey to this point, and that although nobody likes the height of the numbers, there's a clear understanding that it's almost an evil necessity right now. I really appreciated everybody's sharing of their perspectives in terms of the body of work. And I guess from where I sit, echoes some of the sentiments that have already been shared. You know, it's an extremely delicate balancing act. And of course, we can't forget we're applying our self-imposed prioritisation framework right from the very beginning about compliance first, looking after stuff we've already built and so on and so forth. And also have to flag the fact that we have managed to pare back a considerable number of savings through the various iterations of this, to the tune of 198 million over the course of the plan itself. So we have found savings where we were able, and I at the same time, and certainly echo potentially the sentiments raised by Liz, and I think it was Andrew, around levels of service. You know, we were pretty clear we didn't want to see them go backwards. And yes, to your point, Mike Pettit, people don't move to Waipā for the place to go backwards. So, you know, I think we share a general agreement there, and I think this plan totally holds true to those original self-imposed frameworks. So I guess, interestingly, just as an aside, you know, the discussion around nice to haves and benchmarking, all very topical right now, had the great pleasure of being out at Karapiro on the weekend, and quite arguably our investment in the domain and the velodrome, etc., could be classed as a nice to haves in this climate, but without them, you probably would have not had, what was it, 2,600 plus athletes at Karapiro, and I'm not sure of the number at the Grand Prix, the APL Grand Prix at the velodrome, but it was busy as well. You know, so there are a lot of things that we have invested in the past that may have contributed in part to where we are today, that actually have seen huge economic stimulus into and economic development growth within our district and drawn people to it. So, look, I appreciate that now is not the time to be splashing out and shiny nice to haves, but I think we can quite honestly say that a lot of the spending in the past has actually been done for good reason. And that is why Waipā does enjoy a growth profile and is admired around the district for many reasons. So look, without any further ado, Monty, did you want to add something there?
I was happy to move. I'll take the head on this.
Pardon?
I said I'm happy to move. If that's
you're
what you're
going to
working
move?
up to.
Okay, Monty, you'll move. We've actually got a slight recommendation change here on account of the issues that, or suggested changes that Claire has raised. So obviously the same recommendation is appearing at page 22, but with the additional clause C. Sorry, I've got frogs in my throat today. Delegates authority to the CE to make amendments to the documents listed in recommendations B2 and B, oh gosh, Roman numerals, for 8 as required in consultation with the mayor, and that is to reflect your discussions, I believe, Claire, and the agreed additions earlier in this item, and also note the change there in paragraph D. Further approval of the documents will be sought prior to audit in early 2025, just changing that from the specific date of that meeting. So with that changed recommendation, there's nothing after that, is there? No, just those ones. The numbering changes, obviously, as a result. Fabulous. So I have Monty, who's going to move the recommendation, and Andrew?
Yes, I will second. I'd just like to also point out that by my count, staff went back 4 times and looked at every line item. I honestly believe they could not have done more, and I'm happy to second.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. So moved by Monty, seconded by Andrew. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Yep. Roger is against. Roger, did you want to be recorded or not? Yes, you'd like to have your position against recorded. The motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, staff. And yes, to your point, Andrew, this has been, it's not the one hit wonder or the one iteration, and we went with the first cut. It has been worked and reworked again, and you've all worked hours well beyond probably what's really humanly possible to bring us this final version for us to give you an indication on today that we'll move into the new year and refine. So thank you. Take a well-deserved break.
Thanks, Yolanda. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, members, for a really thorough discussion and around, and respectful, should I say, too, discussion around that item. It's certainly not easy. So moving on then to our next item, which is a financial report for the period ending 30 November. Nada, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everyone. I have the results here for November. The total income is currently at 40% and the expenditure is at 44%. Our capital expenditure, we're currently at 37% of the forecast. And this month there has been no changes or budget changes on that. Our rates, we have had 2 quarters invoiced. And there is a balance outstanding of 2.3 million. Our water rates, we've had 8 million invoiced for the year, and we currently have a total of 2.2 million outstanding. I'll take the rest of it as being read and take any questions.
Thank you, Nada. Questions for her, Claire?
Yes, thanks. I'm really happy with the report. I presume that this is the monthly update that we're getting now so that we can keep a closer tab on, our debt management. Just at the end of the rates report, it mentions the number of properties that are in arrears. Previously, I have requested that we could actually get an idea of any change over time. Yeah, so maybe compared to the last financial year or the last quarter or something, that would be really helpful both for the rates and for the water invoicing. Yeah. So it might not fit as a footer or something, but maybe something else, because it's really important for us to understand whether or not, the situation is getting worse, with each invoicing round. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I just want to say we normally present the monthly report to Finance and Corporate. It's just in terms of timing, and that's why it's coming to Council. But the committee that normally looks at this is the Finance and Corporate.
Roger.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for this. I'm just going back to look at the report that we had similar to this that was 2 months ago, and we saw very similar variations of actual to budget. And then the next month, we were advised that we were looking to a 12-month deficit. What is there in this report that will give us confidence of a future view that there is no deficit on the annual figures. Because I think this is the same report that we get each month, and yet it didn't tell us that we were going towards an annual deficit. And it may be that we're not getting the right reports, but maybe I should let you answer that. Or Ken answer that.
Ken.
Yeah, okay, I'll answer that. Look, so Councillor Roger, yeah, we did a comprehensive reforecast at the end of October. There have been no changes to the forecast since then. So at this stage, yeah, you know, that forecast, which was for a general funds cash deficit, remains. Yeah, but look, yeah, we did say that we would pick up the monitoring of that. Yeah, I mean, this report has fallen very, very quickly after the previous one, obviously.
So I'm right in saying there's nothing in this report that gives us a picture of what our annual forecast is. So this is.
Yeah, so look, there's a column there that says 24-25 full year forecast, just reiterating that that is exactly the same as what it was in that October report. In effect, you know, the time difference between the preparation of these reports has been probably something like 2 weeks. Just the way the calendar has fallen. Yeah, for this particular month.
Okay. I do look forward to seeing us having a discussion of our regular monthly reporting, that we can have greater confidence in our figures that we're getting presented. Thank you.
Ken, I mean, the issue here is cash.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an operating surplus that's shown here, but it doesn't mean it's a cash operating surplus that's shown. So if you took out the non-cash items, you would find that there is a cash deficit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's clearly here in the report.
Clear.
Is it highlighted in the report then, Andrew, that the projection is towards a cash deficit?
Well, I guess my point is, if you take out the non-cash item, vested assets, discovered assets, and it's, you know, you should be, you know, Ken, can you, is that able to be done from this statement effectively?
Oh, well, I mean, yes, you can see where the non-cash items are in here. I mean, in terms of the full year forecast, yeah, we're obviously forecasting an operating surplus of $15.9 million. But as you've seen, Councillor, there's some quite chunky non-cash items that come into that 15.9. Yeah, I mean, a perfect example is the 11.3 million forecast for vested assets. So that, you know, that is in there. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, in regard to the non-cash element, I mean, remember as well that there's non-cash depreciation of nearly $40 million in there. Yeah, you know, that's non-cash as well. So yeah, so in terms of the expense side. So so it, you know, it depends what you're looking at. But look, we do need to keep a close eye, as I've said previously, a close eye over the next 6 months. But you know, of this financial year, we're now halfway through the financial year. Although this is obviously only to November, so 7 months remaining in regard to this report. Yeah, we need to keep a close eye on what our general funds cash position will be at the you know, at the end of the year. We reforecast that. Yeah, you know, at the end of October, we need to be keeping a close eye on that over the remaining period of the year.
Yeah, certainly, totally agree with that. Thanks.
Clear.
Yeah, so I'd just like to have a bit more of a conversation about whether or not we should be concerned month by month on what might be a projected cash deficit. Now, obviously, as you said, you know, you're keeping a close eye on the cash position, and I presume that the reason that we're concerned about it is that it could impact, the final, I suppose, rates wash up or something, that if there is a deficit, it'll have to be funded in some way that might have to come from rates. I presume that's why the questions are being raised. But I know from previous statements you've made, Ken, that council tries to budget for a small cash surplus generally, and that it's been very useful in the past to have a bit of a cash surplus because it's been able to smooth, some increases or been able to fund some unexpected things that it's just an easy work. It's nice to have that little bit in the kitty. But I mean, I'm concerned that if there's going to be sort of a spotlight on it, is it a good use of our time, given that we know that staff are watching it carefully, and in fact, often, are there many levers that we can pull on it? Yeah, like I'm not sure whether or not it's something that elected members need to have close oversight of it over the next 7 months.
Liz.
I guess I'm looking at this from the ratepayer's perspective, and I'm not an accountant. And sometimes when you look at these kind of reports, you expect the analysis to have been done already in the commentary. And I'm going to suggest that maybe perhaps could be included as just a one-line item in the commentary going forward, because there are people who are interested in what the cash deficit, or hopefully it's the opposite, is going to be. So just keeping a bit of an eye on it and putting it in the commentary, is that something we might be able to achieve going forward? I don't want it to be a massive amount of work, but if it's as simple as what Andrew is saying, as you minus a few things out, then probably it'd just be great to have that as a bit more, provide a bit more clarity.
Monty? Oh.
Yes, that is something we will work into the finance report going forward.
Cool, thank you. Monty?
Look, I just want to follow on from what Roger and Liz have said, and I've said this twice before. I've said this in audit and risk and finance and corporate, that I think there is room for improvement in how financial reporting is brought up to council table. But maybe rather than sort of piecemeal, I think we just need to do a comprehensive look at what's going to finance and corporate, what's going to audit and risk, the cadence of that reporting, what's being reported, and the commentary attached. There's room for improvement, because I'll be honest, these are quite hard to understand, I think. You spend quite a lot of time playing around with numbers and stuff, and it could be better done in advance. And given the extremely tight financial future that we have ahead of ourselves, I'm really keen that everyone around this table is every month understanding where we're at and how we're trending and so on. So for me, this is, it's sort of a medium-sized piece of work we need to do in the new year. In my mind, it was like land this LTP, then look at that. So before we go into the LTP, we're in a better place for financial reporting. That's what I'd like to see.
Can I just
I've said it 3 times now, so.
Can I just make a quick comment and endorse what Liz says, that it is important that we consider the ratepayers' view of these reports, that there has to be transparency in an easy to understand language, because our ratepayers aren't financial wizards. So I think it's got to be.
Yeah, neither am I just like to say.
Andrew.
No. But yeah, look, Monty, I totally agree with what you're saying. Ken, just a question. Look, I'll be. When I was first elected in 2013, I spent a lot of time trying to understand the financial statements that come out and reconcile them back to each other. It's not possible. It doesn't work like that. But Ken, these reports are legislated for, aren't they? I mean, basically, they are. Is that?
Oh, no, not really, councillor. So I mean, in terms of our annual report, yeah, I mean, obviously there's legislation requiring that it must comply with the accounting standards. So annual report is definitely all of the international financial reporting standards apply, and so these reports are prepared on a similar basis. But there are no specific legislative requirements around, monthly or 4 monthly reports, council can determine its own practice there. But obviously it's helpful if those are prepared on the same basis that the annual report must be prepared on at year end.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, these have kind of been derived from what we have to do annually. So it's been worked back, but there's definitely room. I mean, so we have the option of doing quite a different stuff here that would be, yeah, great. Sounds good.
Great. I think we're all in heated agreement is the saying, isn't it? Liz?
Yeah, look, I think we've landed in a good place. I guess I just want to help I guess the public understand, we've got a press release that went out about half an hour ago about a $1.5 million playground, destination playground going out into Leamington. That's fantastic, but it could be seen as a nice to have. Okay, and we're looking at a deficit potentially this year. We're looking at a really hard, road ahead for the LTP. We need to be really careful around our messaging, okay, because I just look at this and I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I want to ensure that we're as transparent as we can possibly be in the fact and help our public understand what is an annual plan, how our budgets work a little bit better. And I keep going back, I know, to a campaign that we did years ago. It was called Making Sense of Our Sense. And it was absolutely fantastic because we are legislatively bound, but we're also having to plan so far ahead that we can't just stop a project. That's not possible. Our wheels turn quite slowly. So when our public see this, if it goes into the newspaper, which I presume it will, there's potential there for, some real unclear messaging, cross messaging, I think that could be happening at this time of the year. So our financial reports really we need to help our public understand them.
Thanks, Liz. Any other questions in respect of this matter that NADA has presented for us today? I think we're all in heated agreement in terms of the need for improvement in terms of the way these things are communicated and reported, but that's all good. So you're happy to move it and I will second that from the chair. So I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Aye. Carried. Excellent. Hey, let's just break now shortly for a morning tea break. I suggest we come back. We have 15 minutes, so let's return or reconvene at 10 to 11.
Speed limits. My goodness, our life is so exciting.
Right. Could I just bring the meeting back to order, please? Wonderful. Well, welcome back, everybody. Nice little cuppa there. And moving on then to our agenda, next item appears at tab 10 of our diligent, page 207. And this item relates to speed limits bylaw. So good morning, Mika. Nice to see you. The floor is yours.
Kia ora koutou. I take the report as read. The purpose of today is to revoke the speed limits bylaw. It is effectively obsolete after all the speed limits were moved to the National Speed Limits Register. And that is how the speed limits will be managed from now on. At a workshop last month, there were discussions on what the process will look like now, and that process sits separate from the bylaw. So yeah, it can now be revoked. Any questions?
Thank you, Mika. Questions for Mika on this matter? You're happy to move it, Claire? And I already have Bruce seconding it. You'll have to get the next one, Lou. I thank you very much, Mika. I have a mover and a seconder. I shall put the motion in terms of the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Fantastic. That might be a world record for you, Mika.
Thank you.
Now, we may have a little bit of fanfare for this next item. It's the appointment of Civil Defence Emergency Management Local Controller. Wayne, this is your item, and I believe Carl is to come and sit next to him. Floor is yours, Wayne. Morning to you both.
Right. Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Firstly, it gives me great pleasure to present this recommendation to you, not only just to receive the report, but to endorse the appointment of the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee, of which Councillor Lou Brown is the Deputy Chair, of the appointment of Carl Tati as a Tier 2 Local Emergency Management Controller. The Tier 2 status means that where necessary, Carl can exercise the powers of a local Civil Defence Emergency Management Controller anywhere in the whole Waikato CDM group area as experience levels increase. This includes performing the role of a local controller across the shared service arrangements in the Western Waikato area, including the Waipa, Waitomo and Otahuanga districts. Carl's completed the requisite local controller response and recovery New Zealand leadership development course known as RANS, and been through the required interview process, including with the group controller Journey and Snowball, who fully endorses Carl's appointment. It's encouraging to note that our Western Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management area, including Waipa District, is now well served by local emergency management controllers, with 4 being Tier 2, 1 Tier 3 at Waitomo who can only operate within their district. It's also important that we have resilience in numbers for ongoing mentoring and training, and we're able to command and control extended public emergency events at a local level if they arise. We are very fortunate indeed to have the level of staff commitment and experience here at Waipa, as some territorial authorities do not have local controllers and are required to rely on other controllers across the region of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. So accordingly, I commend to you the recommendation for endorsing Carl's appointment by the Civil Defence Emergency Joint Committee as an emergency management local controller.
Great stuff. Now, I know Lou wants to speak to this, so I shall pass the speaking paddle over to him.
I would
Lou.
very much like to speak to this. Firstly, once again, I'd like to congratulate you, Carl, on your time and effort that you've put into doing this. It's a great honour to have so many good people coming through as controllers. As I say, I do sit as the Deputy Chair at the Joint Committee, and we really appreciate having people like yourself coming through of your calibre, and the knowledge that you have also with the Fire Brigade. will certainly enhance a lot of those problems that we have liaison. So I would like to happily move the acceptance of this report and move that we complete the whole operation. So thank you.
So you're going to move it for me, Lou. Thank you very much. Fabulous. Thanks very much. Liz.
Hey, I guess, Carl, I just wanted to kind of let everyone around the room here understand just the journey that you've been on with Waipa District Council, because you've been here a long time. And I know you don't really want to hear this, but you have the respect of the community. I can see that with through Dave here and Kathy Shaw here as well, supporting you. Your work that you've done through, I mean, as a staff member, of course, you know, with what you do here, dogs, alcohol, you know, you have to deal with a lot of tricky and often challenging situations, but it's your work in the local fire brigade, your voluntary work there, that is just so commendable. So this position is just a natural progression, and it's also a great example to other staff that you can, you know, if you've been within council, the progression that's available and the doors that can open to you and opportunities that are here as well, I think, you know, are just, you know, great. It's a great opportunity to inspire other people to work through the same journey path that you have. So look, Tier 2 Controller, fantastic. Just can't support that more. Happy to second the recommendation and wish you well. Look forward to seeing what you do next, actually.
Del Marie, did you want to add in? No, you're fine. Okay, good-o, good-o. Any other questions or comments to be made here in respect of this matter that Wayne has before us? Well, good. Look, yeah, I just wanted to echo that sentiment, I guess. You know, your commitment. I mean, we know at Waipa, obviously, we've been pretty fortunate to have you commit to, sort of not-profit community avenues for some years. But it's quite neat to see that your skills and generosity is going to be spread further throughout the whole region. So, look, great acknowledgement of the heart and commitment that you show to your community. So thank you so much, Carl, and thank you for the report. I have a mover in Lou and a seconder in Liz, so I shall put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And deserved.
Thank you very much. Very appreciate that endorsement and those words. It does make it worthwhile, and it's certainly the beauty of local government. Opportunities do come up if you're that way inclined, but I certainly wouldn't be putting myself forward if emergency management didn't have the focus that it does within this organisation, and if there weren't a whole range of supportive and mentors in the group. So Wayne, Dave, Dick, Kathy and company, I certainly wouldn't be even considering it without some great role models to follow. So thank you.
We look forward to the videos that may come too, like the fire brigade one.
Great stuff. What a great item to end the year out on. Right, next item on our agenda is a proposed January to March 2025 council schedule of meetings. And Joe, the floor is yours. Obviously, we have a few changes to make, but I'll let you speak to your item.
Good morning, everyone. We've got here, before you've got some changes to what you've got in the agenda. You did have in your pack a calendar from January through to March. We've been able to progress the work that we've been doing a bit faster than we thought. So we're instead, the plan is to bring a calendar from March through to September back to you at the end of January, which is great that we're being able to progress that sooner than we thought. We've also, there has been some discussion that you would like to change the day from a Tuesday to a Wednesday. So we've made that change for February, the January meeting and the meetings in February. So is everybody happy with those dates?
Liz.
Thank you, Joe. Hey, I was just going to suggest, and I know we are coming back obviously later in January, but I was going to suggest and wonder whether we might be able to move that Wednesday the 5th SPMP meeting to the following week, because we are meeting already. We've got a workshop and briefings. Is that something that could, I wonder how the other councillors feel about it. I just wondered with Waitangi Day there, it would just provide Everyone with a little bit more breathing space, so just a thought.
Just check with group manager strategy just to see what's on that agenda for February, to see if that poses any issues.
I support Liz because the 5th is a better day for everybody. Just saying, it was a great day in 1973. So can we please shift to the next week?
We'll just see what the staff workload had been in respect of those dates. Just hold on a moment. Just take a quick pause.
So as we're just looking at the work program for that particular workshop and the consequent results of that, one of the implications of the timing out of that was it was going to be a workshop on the local waters done well progress and decision making. And so if we move that out further, there's decisions to be made by the end of February. So what I ask for, because the team are just working now to understand what the implications of that are, we weren't given notice of that with respect, Liz, so it does require a bit of background thinking as to what the consequences of that are. So we can come back to you out of this council meeting with a response to that so that we can all understand what that looks like.
I wasn't suggesting we move the workshop and briefings day. I'm suggesting that the SPMP be moved to Wednesday, the 12th.
Yeah, so I think we are talking about the SPMP day from the 4th, what was planned for that day. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? The
Yeah,
SPMP for the 4th? Yeah.
Yes, I see. So you're saying the workshop that you mentioned is
the 4th. What we're looking at is what was planned for the 4th, and there was an element of that was going to be workshop around waters. So because and once we're getting into the new year, we're getting into those tight timeframes for the waters decision. So if we can, Susan, take that offline. And
it's only a suggestion, not going to die in a ditch over it, just thought it gives us all a bit of breathing space, that's all.
Yeah, I would suggest we stick with what the schedule is there, noting that the work will be done to see if that can be accommodated, but and further noting the paragraph C delegates us the ability to alter that. Yeah, should it work out that it's a doable option.
Yep, and in that case, happy to move.
Cool. Moved by Liz, seconded by Andrew. Is there any further discussion in respect of this matter? No. Excellent. Good stuff. Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thank you.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you, team, for your work on that matter. Next item is really it's a Diana item. Good morning, Diana. It's obviously an update on council delegations. Floor is yours.
Morning. Thank you, Your Worship. So my last delegation report for the year seeks approval to make updates to our delegations under the Local Government Rating Act. And this is to delegate to the Group Manager Business Support, Manager Finance and Revenue Team Leader additional powers regarding enforcement of unpaid rates. This is particularly in relation to abandoned land. Very happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Diana. Any questions for her in respect of her report and the recommendations she's seeking? Roger.
Yes, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Just explain the abandoned, yeah.
Certainly. Through the chair, so the abandoned land has a specific definition, and so in this case it would be land where rates haven't been paid for 3 years or more, and where the ratepayer is unknown, cannot be found after due inquiry, and has no known agent in New Zealand, is deceased and has no personal representative, or has given notice they intend to abandon the land. So it's a specific definition.
Thank you. I have no problems with the recommendation, so I'll move from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Marcus, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Great. Thank you very much, Dana. The next item, revocation of reserve and Goodfellow Street,
how much
Tilmutu.
abandoned land
This is
we
an item
have.
obviously that was dealt with through the Finance and Corporate Committee on the 26th rather of November. Hello, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. Just quickly, there is an opportunity here to dispose of some surplus land in Tiamutu, which would be ideally utilised for high-density housing. While council may only receive 50% of the net sale proceeds from this disposal, this is a valuable site which is not currently benefiting ratepayers. This matter was discussed at the Finance and Corporate Committee on the 26th of November, and they recommended the revocation of the reserve status of this land. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, cheers, Andrew. Obviously discussed at length in the Finance and Corporate meeting last month. Any further discussion in respect of this matter? Obviously, it has to come to council for endorsement. You're comfortable moving, Lou? Excellent. Thank you for that. I have a mover, and Bruce will second it. There being no further discussion, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, good work. Love your work. Next item, council submissions. Sharon, I believe this is one of yours. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning. So this is this report is around the submissions for the levies for local water done well that they're proposing, and staff looking to put in a submission probably in conjunction with Waikato Water's Done Well. We're working in with them. Just the timeframes for this submission closes on the 24th of January. So obviously with the break, we can't bring back to you what we're putting through in that submission. There is just a slight change to the resolution, which the girls will put up on the screen. But yeah, I'll take the report as read and take any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Obviously, the amended submission appears on the screens there. But discussion, yes, Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Great that you're able to make submissions on these important topics. One of the options that staff are supporting is the fact that it's based on the number of connections and things like that. But in the report, it says that there's a lot of ways of interpreting that, and often there's not accurate data and things like that. So I'm interested in your comments as to why you still think it would be a feasible option. I mean, I thought Waipa probably does have good information about our connections, and I presume there's a way to like one of the examples that was given was that you could have one connection, but there's 50 people living in the building or something. Yeah, like, have you got approaches that, you know, could, I suppose, mitigate against that inequity?
So at this stage, we still have the discussions with the wider Waikato Water's Done Well team to sort of see what their thoughts are as well on the submission. But our first thoughts, we're doing it by a connection basis would be more fairer than doing it by a population basis. We just felt that that was, you know, there's a lot of people out there that potentially aren't connected and different across the different regions as well. So, so this levy is going across everyone, the entire country. So there's a lot of people that haven't got those connections, you know. So yeah, I suppose it depends, you know, when you start putting these entities together and how your numbers fall out and stuff. But and then you've obviously got the areas that haven't got water meters and stuff at the moment too. But there should still be sufficient records for the connections. But as I said, we'll take this to the wider Waikato Water's Done Well group and sort of get their inputs as well on that.
Okay, and there were just two other points. One is that the proposal is to invoice for the levy quarterly in advance. And so I wondered whether or not that might create cash flow issues for council in that, or the CCO, if that was the case, because obviously we are probably going to be invoicing in arrears, I guess, for our water services, and whether or not that might mean that council might have to pay out the levy before we've actually got the funding in from the connected consumers. So it'd be really great if we could consider how we could avoid that, because, you know, obviously that would put our finances under stress. And the second point, as someone who is benefits from being connected to council's drinking water network, but not the wastewater network, I'm anxious not to be charged a levy as a connected person simply because I'm getting water, that there's assumption that I'm happy to pay for the wastewater levy as well. I'm not. And so I'm really conscious of the fact that we need to be seen to be fair. Yeah, and I'm really hoping that whatever system is applied, it's not just assumed that because you're a water connected person, you're not, you're going to be paying the wastewater levy too. Thanks.
Great, thanks Claire. Great comments, and yes, I'll feed those back.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Any other comments or questions of Sharon in respect to this? Bruce.
Thank you, Susan. Sharon, just on page, and it could be a correction, I might see you later, on page 319, the Crown contribution of 4.642 million cubed. I think that's a mistake there because it's $4.642 million, but I don't think the 3 should be there unless I'm missing something. That's page 319 of, yeah. Or what's it on yours? Page 9 of 28. Does it help?
That on one of the fact sheets that's
Yeah.
following
Yes,
through.
second paragraph is
Okay. Levy structure, it's got, but that's a minor thing, but I think it has to be the 3. Yeah, how many cubes can you make in dollars? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's an error on the DIA fact sheet, but we can follow that up as well.
Lou.
Yeah, thank you through you, the Chair. Sharon, I just had a look at the final figures here, and it just says that from the 1st of July 2025, it'll equate to $4.14 per person, and it'll cost our rate or our consumers a total of $253,000. Is that going to be quantified into our budget, or is that because where does this go? Does this go into our water rates, or is that going to go on our general rates? I'm just asking questions here because we are sitting here doing budgets right now. We've argued quite considerably, and I just wanted to know where that was going to actually land and when and how it's going to operate.
So seeing this is still going through, obviously, that submission process. It's not included in our LTP. Like, these figures only came to light a few weeks ago when this came out. So until it's actually been confirmed, those figures are confirmed. So probably through the submission process of the LTP, we will need to factor these costs in for the 25-26 year and going forward. So that 253 obviously jumps up after 2 years because then we're paying the full levy for both. So it'll be around the 500K mark as an estimate. But yeah, until we actually get the final legislation through what those charges are going to be, it's not included in the LTP. If that's through, will come through the submission process, and we will need to put that. It'll be part of the water rate charge, not a general rate. Yeah, just that's keeping that ring fencing of waters. It's a directly water wastewater charges.
Lou. Any other discussion? There's some great points raised there. So we have the amended recommendation behind me there. Obviously, slightly different. It's notes. It doesn't have to approve because that existing delegation already rests in there anyway. But that delegation will be exercised in consultation between Steph and myself, and we'll provide obviously that as soon as possible at the next meeting. So Did I have a mover? I had Lou as mover. That's right, didn't I? I'm really losing my mind now. And Claire, you're happy to second that? Fantastic. I will put the motion then. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, there was one other matter you just wanted to raise. And
For councillors' awareness, we have talked that we've formed a whole of government approach, a whole of organisation approach to the whole of government reform approach. And that team of people meet on a regular basis. And it's come to my attention that there are 7 submissions due to central government pieces of work over the Christmas, New Year's break. That's not counting the submission to the Board of Inquiry on the waste to energy plant, which we'll be making tomorrow. But they do include the Treaty Principles Bill, which is due on the 7th of January, the Electoral Reform Issues paper, which covers a range of, 5 key topics, due on the 20th of January. The Local Government Water Services Bill was introduced last week, and so we'll be doing work on that. The RMA Amendment Bill will have the first reading this week, and there's several others. So just to let you know, that we'll be using the delegated authority that we've just used there to ensure that the Waipa voice is heard into each of those pieces of work, and then report them back as per the delegated authority that I have. But what we will do, particularly around the Treaty Principles Bill, is share with you this afternoon the Local Government New Zealand submission, and we will share with you other sister council submissions, which ours will largely follow, but we will have a Waipa voice to it. So just so that you can get a feel for what they're looking like, we'll distribute them this afternoon. But it's going to be a busy time, and in advance, just acknowledging the staff who are already working on those and will be working through the holiday period to ensure that they are submitted. Thank you, Susan.
seems to be the new norm, right? Leading up to Christmas, suddenly we get smashed with a whole bunch of truncated timeframes within which to respond to government reform. Seems to be the Wellington way. Right. Okay, thank you for that heads up. Moving on then to our, the next recommendation, which is a resolution to exclude public on account of dealing with a number of public excluded items. Obviously, the purpose or reason behind that recommendation appears at page 339. I'm comfortable that they're sound reasons, and I will therefore move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Claire will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?